All right, we're going to be discussing the lesson that I came and observed yesterday. So could you first start off by telling me what the general activity the students were doing is?
Sure. So yesterday we were reviewing for our upcoming test over homeostasis and the cell membrane. And the students just needed to practice more with the material to make sure that they're ready before they take that test. So the questions that I gave them were, I feel like, fairly similar to the test, as in they were all multiple choice, so the same format. It was a breakout style review. So each group had a set of questions and then a answer recording sheet, and they needed to go through the questions together, record their answers, and then verify that they had gotten the correct answers for each step before going on. So it was really helping them review the material one level or one step at a time to make sure that they understood one section before going on to the next part. And that's about it.
Awesome. So y'all were working on T4B.
Yes.
Okay, great. When I came in your room, some positives that I noticed is that you had the objective posted. It appeared that most students were working actively with their groups. You had most students working on the review, and then a few students were completing an assignment they hadn't finished from the class period before. I liked that when you were walking around, you were making sure to check on each group. About every 5 minutes, each group got checked on. And when they had questions, you used probing questions to help clarify their misunderstandings. So that was a really good point. I did notice a couple of things, like some students being off task and working with their group. And then also that you were not collecting in the moment data to see, what are the common misunderstandings that keep coming up. You might have been doing that in your head, but I didn't see any evidence of that when I was walking around. Another positive was that I asked 2 questions if they knew the purpose of what they were doing in class, and both of them were able to tell me why they were working on what they were working on. So if you were to kind of do a little self-analysis and think about one area that you could have maybe planned for more or done in the moment to improve that lesson, what do you think you would do?
Okay. So first off, I think it's great that the students were able to answer your questions and they knew what they were doing. That's been one of my goals this year. I've been having them actually write down our learning objectives, which I've never done. And I think it's giving them a sense of purpose so they know where we're going each class period. So they feel a little bit more invested there. I think I could, improve in my grouping that I'm creating. So these students have been sitting together for a few weeks now, so they're very familiar with each other and they know who does the work and who doesn't do the work. So I think moving on, I'm going to need to reevaluate my seating and who's sitting with each other to make sure that there's a little bit better of a mix and that all students are going to feel like they need to participate in order to learn the material and move forward.
Great. I think the number one thing I identified too was the grouping of students and that we had some students not fully engaged. So I think that's really great that you identified that. One action step I think you could implement that would help promote that engagement from all students would be assigning each student a role to ensure that they're fully engaged during that work. So let's think about what roles could have been assigned with this review.
Okay, so in the review, there were a couple of things. One student definitely needed to be reviewing the questions, perhaps reading them aloud for the rest of the group in case they couldn't see. I would say one student definitely needed to have notes out or access to the notes online so that they could help look through for the answers when they didn't know off the top of their heads. Definitely needed one student to be recording their answers so they could turn in that answer sheet at the end. And then there was an online portion, a Google form that they could go through and type in little passcodes, which would tell them if they have the questions correct or not. So I think that's 4 there, 1 per.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So then the next time that you do a review this style, you could implement those roles. What about, is there any other group work you have coming up that we could go ahead and brainstorm what roles each student would have?
Yeah, in the next few weeks, we're going to be doing a lab studying enzymes and how temperature affects different enzyme abilities. So I think we can definitely take a look into the roles of the students in that lab.
Okay, so in that lab, how many students will you have working together?
Maximum of 4. Some groups might have 3.
Okay, so 3 to 4. So what are the roles that you could assign to those students?
So I think most important would be the procedures manager. So the person that's looking at the lab, telling everyone what they need to be doing, making sure that they're following the steps and that they're staying on track with what they need to get done. Another person would need to be actually hands-on physically doing the lab. And in this upcoming lab, I think it would be beneficial if we maybe had 2 students working on that part. There's a couple different materials. 4 hands might be better than 2 on that stage. And then we're definitely going to need someone that is the main recorder to make sure that they're getting all of the information written down and they're not having to, oh, wait, what did we do? You got to have someone writing down in the moment.
Awesome. I think those sound like great roles. So have you thought about how you might communicate those roles to the students?
Absolutely. I think the best way would be for me to pre-assign them now that I've gotten to know their personalities and who works with who tends to be chattier in class. So I will look through my seating chart, group the students, and then as they come in, I'll tell them, or the paper that they get will have that role listed for them.
Which one of those, either telling them as they come in or the role listed, do you think would be most effective?
Role listed, definitely. Short-term memories seem to be an issue in the mornings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll post that list so the kids have a visual of what they're. Yeah. Okay, I think that sounds great. Do you have a timeline for when that lab will be taking place so I could come in and observe?
I would say it's going to be definitely not next week, perhaps the week after.
Okay, the week after. So I'll follow up with you next week to see if you've finalized that date for that lab.
Yeah, sounds good.